Hello, folks. Are you struggling with creating a Pinterest strategy that you can stick to and have confidence in? Do you know that it doesn't have to be complicated? Thank goodness, or I'd be lost. Would you love to be able to check off your Pinterest to-do list or even hand it off to a VA? Wouldn't that be exciting? Well, today, we're going to answer all those questions. We're going to help you do that. Welcome to the Marketing Unleashed show. I'm Jeff C. of Manly Pinterest Tips, and I'm here with my co-host, Elisa Meredith, Content Marketing Manager at Tailwind, and we are happy to have you guys on today. Would you do us a favor? As we are talking, would you maybe, distribute the love across the interwebs for us and let other people know about this show, because it really does help us out. And also, we are doing something special once again. We are doing the hashtag Tailwind tip. So if we're going along the show today and you hear some just awesome nugget of information, just, put hashtag Tailwind tip and then that nugget of information, and you could be entered for a drawing for our free little selfie life here. Isn't that really cool? And Elisa's actually using it today because she was too lazy to get her camera. But look how awesome. I mean, it's awesome. Oh, you make your beard glow. Just look at all the stuff you can do with it. It's very amazing. So remember, as we're going today, let us know with the hashtag Tailwind tip and then drop in that nugget of info. And if you have your own nugget that you found, something that works really well on Pinterest for you or on Tailwind, use that as your hashtag Tailwind tip. But we want to give away this selfie light today, so we would love if you guys would do this. Also, we do have this free giveaway right now that we'd love for you to sign up and download. It's at bit.ly/pin strategy now, all smashed together. That's bit.ly/PIN STRATEGYNOW. We would love for you guys to download that for us. What is this all about? What is this guide all about, Elisa?
It is how to get more traffic from Pinterest, but really what it is an ebook of Pinterest strategy, but also at the very end, like page 25, there is a one-page sheet of what to do on Pinterest every week, every month, every quarter. Just print it out, hand it to your VA, and you're good to go.
Very, very cool.
Or use it yourself.
That's right, or use it yourself, which some of us, we don't have VAs, and it would be great to use for ourselves. So, but we do have some awesome Pinterest news. So let's jump into the Pinterest news. You and I kind of discovered something. We were muddling around, and we noticed on mobile that all our tabs were gone on Pinterest. It changed to, what was it, community, and what was the other one? I can't. What was the other one it said? I can't.
Follow. No.
Yeah, something like it was followers. It was community, or anyway.
Community, yeah.
They took away the video, and all the other tabs that are on desktop are now no longer there on mobile. So if you have been confused about that, or if you've updated your app, it's really strange. We both kind of went, why?
Yeah, and I would love to know if everybody is saying that, because like when I go to Jeff, I just see overview and I see community.
On mobile, right? That's on the mobile.
On mobile, but on some other people's, I'm seeing other things like boards, pins, topics. So I would love to know what you're seeing when you go to mobile and look at somebody's, like go to Jeff's, if you don't mind, Jeff C, and let us know what you're seeing on mobile, because the desktop looks the same. Mobile's changed. I'm not sure why.
It's really weird, because they really did a push about how important it was. They were going to have this video tab that you could see people's videos that they pinned, and that's gone on mobile, which seems odd to me. So hopefully it's a bug, because I want my tabs back right now.
I know. I know. At least they're still really prioritizing video on the mobile search results. Like they're still way at the top. So
yeah. And
the
other piece of news is that you can now, some people, and I don't know how it's rolling out because I never get it. I am the last to get anything. You can add a photo or a video to your profile cover. So kind of explain what that is, Lisa.
Okay, so I was looking for a good example of an e-com Pinterest description the other day. And I thought, well, who better than Target? They are on Pinterest all the time. Target, Nordstrom. Right. And I went to Target's profile, and there was this huge video instead of the cover photo with all the pins on it. It was just one video. And I thought, what in the world is that? And so I posted it in one of our groups, and somebody went and actually found the documentation for it, that you can now select just one image, or you can select a video. maybe. So not everybody has it. In fact, I don't know anybody who has it. It's probably just starting out with the big guys. It was interesting to me because I think it looks like there's supposed to be sound with it. Like there's a person on it talking.
It's kind of
But
weird.
I couldn't get any sound to play. So maybe they were just like, oh, we have this cool thing. Let's try it. I mean, that's probably what I would do too.
Somebody actually, when you posted that, I can't remember where you posted that at, but actually there's a, and you go into Pinterest help, it talks about where you can, how you can do it. And it's, then at the bottom it says, of course, it's not rolling out to everybody, you know, sucker.
Right. So we'll probably have it eventually, but I would think like plan it out. Like in this case, they probably could have used some text on the video so we could know what the person was saying. But it looked kind of cool. It was like a little ad running at the very top, and it isn't costing anything. So yay for that.
Yeah. I think it's, you know me, I love anything has to do with video. So I'm excited to get that because I think it's just another way, you know. I think Pinterest is really wanting to push video. I know you still don't know if you like it or not, but I really do. So I think it's really fun.
I mean, to be fair, I'm not, people will send me videos all the time and say, did you see that? And I no.
Yeah, you're a writer. You're a writer and you read a lot.
I'd rather read, but I get it. People love video. And I have to admit, it was very eye-catching to see that just one big video with a movement instead of just the pins showing up. Exactly. So I think it's, especially for a brand, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So today we're talking about building a simple Pinterest strategy. And there is a comment that we've got to bring up because from our friend Dave, he goes, oof, every day I'm pinning going, is this really worth it? I love to see more traffic and I don't know if I'm just impatient or incompetent. Okay. Or if the only people who are having success on Pinterest are those who are teaching how to have success on Pinterest. That was a subtle dig. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
One of the things is thanks, Dave. That was a great question. The other one is we are going to dive into all that today, but we got to remember that Elisa and I have been doing this for a long time. I mean, you were on it like from the very, very, very beginning, weren't you, Elisa?
Yeah, I think I was in about 4th grade when I started.
Yeah.
We were on from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's right. Beard. No, you did not. You didn't have your beard yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it does take a while now. I mean, there are people who come on way later than me who have a lot more followers and engagement than I do. It's absolutely, you can catch up and you can get past us in no time, Dave. And we're going to show you how to do that. But it is true that Pinterest content can take a little longer to get some steam and for you to really feel like you're doing a good job. So I don't think you're incompetent. You might be a little impatient.
Yeah.
But that's typical, right? So people kind of lump Pinterest in with social, and on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, you're going to see at least some activity right away. So you feel like it's working. Pinterest is a little bit more like Google SEO, right? So you know it's not going to happen immediately, but it is going to happen, and it's going to ramp up, and it's going to pay off for a very long time. So if you can just stick with it a bit and really invest in doing it right, it is going to pay off for you.
Yeah, and I think it was important what you said right there is it's like Google SEO, and you're going to hear us throughout this time together talking about a lot of these things like a search engine and some stuff to optimize for that. So there's a lot of similarities between those two. So why don't you go ahead and get us started on the number one thing you should do to actually build a simple Pinterest strategy.
Okay, well, the first thing you have to do is set up an account. So obviously. And that's really easy on Pinterest, right? They walk you through every single step. And I would say the one thing to keep in mind while you're doing that would be your keywords, and really talk about what you have to offer as opposed to talking about yourself and your brand. So realizing that most searches are not branded. Most people don't search for any brand, and especially if you're a littler one, rely more on keywords than branding. But most people, I feel like most people who give me the question, I'm just getting started, I have my account, what do I do? I feel like most people have that account set up, but do make sure that you claim your account, because Pinterest will connect your blog or your website with your Pinterest account and pay attention when you post from that account. So that's just one little thing that you may not think of. I think the rest is fairly easy to figure out when you're going through the step-by-step. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, so I've set up a lot of accounts. The biggest thing, like you said, is I think most people forget about a business account when they first
Oh
set
yeah.
one up. And
True.
so I think if you're going to do any sort of business, if you have a blog, and I know a lot of our watchers here now, is that, start off with a business account. I didn't at first. I had a personal one, and I was freaked out.
Same.
I was like, I had a lot of followers. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I switch it, oh my gosh, it's going to screw something up. And so I didn't for a long time. And I was actually breaking Pinterest terms of service because I was selling my products and I was selling my stuff. And so that wasn't cool. So, but when I switched it,
cool, that.
I know I was a noob. I didn't know what I was doing. And so the thing is, though, when I did, you flip a switch and it changes over, and there's nothing different about it except you get a lot more stuff like analytics and promoted pins came along, all that stuff. So that's the first thing. If you're setting up an account and you're doing a business, make it a business account.
Yep. Simple.
Simple. So number 2.
Set up your boards, right? Another super basic one. But a lot of people think, well, what boards do I set up? It has to do with your content. So, right, the focus of everything we're going to talk about today on Pinterest is your content and what you're creating. So as you're looking at your blog posts or your product listings, think about the different categories they fall into and create boards based on that. So if I sell high-end bicycles, I'm probably going to have some boards for places to go bike riding, quick bicycle repairs. What else might I have, Jeff?
Oh,
Bicycle repairs. I'm not a bicycle shop person. So
different types of, bicycle clothing, water bottles to carry along, accessories for your bike, stuff like that. So everything that would, kind of fit there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to think about every piece of content that you create, you want to have several different boards it can fit on. So you don't have to build out all your boards at the beginning if you don't want to, but build them based on the content that you're creating. So hopefully it would be really nice if you had a backlog and you could go through all that and write out, okay, what is this content about, or what is this product, and what boards could I create with keywords that these products would fit on, or these blog posts would fit on, and create them based on your content, right? Not based on what you think pinners want to see in general. Because I could have a board for keto recipes, which I do, but it's secret. And I could get a ton of followers from it, and I could get all kinds of engagement. They don't care about my content. So for that reason, I'm not going to have that as a public board on my account. I just want to attract the people who want what I have to give.
So
use your keywords.
What's my keyword? So
use your keywords.
Oh, use your keywords. Yeah, I was like, I thought you put me on the spot. I don't have like a personal keyword. One of the things that I wanted to bring up too is when you're talking about this is how many boards should you, like if you're starting from scratch, is there a certain amount of boards you'd like to have before you make your account active, or what are your thoughts there?
No, I mean, I don't really think it matters. I think I would look at the content available and then from there write out what boards would be logical for that account. And realizing the part that boards play in your Pinterest success, and it's sizable, right? Mm-hmm. So the board title and board description give Pinterest context about the content inside of it. So you want to give Pinterest as many signals as you can about what this content is. So just think about that as you're creating your board titles. You're not putting spaces between each and every letter of the board title to make it look cool. Pinterest can't read that. You're not making cute board titles. You're using keywords that might be a search someone would look for, like bicycle accessories or bike shorts or bicycle helmets, mm-hmm. right? It doesn't have to be fancy. It really just, you want to give Pinterest that context so that they can distribute it to the right people in the right searches in the right spots.
That's a great point. Here's a question this goes back to our first point about setting up the account. She goes, what if you're managing an account? This is Kristen. She goes, what if you're managing an account for the company you work for, not as a business owner? So you still would want to set that up as a business account because it's doing business for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I think that always brings up the question of, well, if I'm a business, what should I use for my image? Like for me, I'm going to use probably a picture of myself and Jeff too, and probably a lot of bloggers, because mm-hmm. we're kind of the face of our own Pinterest account. Right. But for Tailwind, it makes sense to use a logo because that's how people recognize us. So definitely do that, and you want to use a business name that makes sense for the business. So obviously it's not going to be your name. It'll be the business name.
Right. So I did want to point this out because so far, Kathy is the only one who's done this. She's got our Tailwind tip and said, when you begin your business account, start with a business account, not a personal account. Hashtag Tailwind tips. So she's in the running for the selfie light, folks. So you know what? You could do it too. So if you have something that Elisa says that is just amazing, do the hashtag Tailwind tip, add it, and you can be entered to win one of these awesome selfie lights.
Jeff, if you have your own Tailwind tip too, like maybe you have a favorite time-saving hack, please, by all means, share it.
And see, Tammy Jones has done the same thing. She goes, only have boards viewable that attract your market and secret the other ones. Very, very good. There was wow, now they're going crazy now. They saw that selfie light. It's awesome.
Gotta have it.
Let's see. There was a yes. People are asking if this is going to be available the other time. You can always watch this on a replay, so don't worry about that. Let's see.
We also have a podcast of this if you prefer to listen.
Yes, and in fact, if you guys, we would love for you guys if you would go like and leave us a comment. You just do search for Tailwind in your favorite podcast software and leave us a review. We're climbing in the rankings, folks. It's awesome. So we'd love to have your comment in your ranking and review on that as well. So let's see here.
You have another question, or you want to move to the next?
No, here's a great question because this is from Sarah. She goes, I have these brackets around my personal board titles. Am I hurting myself? I would say to make those, that would be easy for you now that you can spot them and move those to secret if they're personal. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely, I would. And here's why. So let's say Sarah Bacon, because your middle name's Bacon. Let's say you bacon. Sell, I know, you sell knitting patterns, but you love bacon. So you have all these bacon recipes with your little brackets. But what you're doing is you're attracting Jeff, who loves bacon. But what you really want him to like are your knitting patterns, which is not going to happen, right? So then you end up with people who are not engaging with your core content, which is going to hurt the distribution of that content. So set that board secret and invite Jeff to it. He will like your bacon pits.
Yeah, I could actually go back to that screen of you and just go get some bacon, actually. So here's another question that I thought was good. This is from Mary James. She goes, when you're referencing keywords, is that in the description? So you kind of be clear on what you're talking about when we're mentioning keywords.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to all the places that you can use your description, your keywords. But as far as we've talked about so far, would be in your board titles and your board descriptions specifically.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, so if we're not getting to all your questions, we will come back in the comments and do that because there's a lot of questions right now on boards and what should go in there. But let's go ahead and move on to tip number 3 on a simple pin strategy. What is prioritizing your own content? Oh, there's a cat. You have a cat hat now. So for you guys listening to the podcast, there's a strange cat that just jumped on Elisa's head. So, yes. This is live video, folks. You never know what's going to happen. So
just stay off the keyboard.
Yeah, you got to quit putting that catnip in your hair.
I know.
So tip number 3 is prioritize your own content. What do you mean by that? But aren't I supposed to share other people's content? Isn't that what makes me popular on Pinterest?
Are you going to talk about the 80-20 rule, Jeff? Because if you
I'm
are,
not going to, but you brought it up. So
I did bring it up. I'm kidding. So your content is what drives traffic and sales to your site. And I have to cough. Hold on. Ooh, okay, excuse me. So when you claim your website, like we talked about in setting up your account, Pinterest knows that it's your website and it's your content that's coming out. Pinterest loves active contributors. So you should be prioritizing, saving, and creating your own content. But that does not mean you can't save other people's content if it's interesting to your followers or you want to support people, because most of us do have friends in our industries that we want to support. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, in fact, that's why we'll just kind of dive into this a little bit. But yes, prioritizing your own content. You want to be, you're going to hear us talk about this a lot about having fresh pins, fresh content. Pinterest is really highlighting that right now. So putting out multiple versions of that blog post as multiple different images, as pins is a great strategy. But also when we're talking about sharing other people's content, is that's what tribes are for. I mean, that's what I use tribes a lot for, is being able to see what Elisa's. I mean, I just go into the tribes that I know that we're both in together. There's some great ones, and I see that she's posted content, and I'm like, that's perfect for my audience. I talk about social media. She talks about social media. She writes more content on blogging than I do, so that's something that my audience would like. And I know Elisa's in this tribe, and I know that all her content is good, so I know it's good stuff. I don't have to really double check things. So that's, for me, is one of the biggest powers of tribes. And then, since she sees me sharing her stuff, then she's like, well, I'm going to share Jeff's stuff because he's so awesome, and he shares way more of my stuff than I do his, and I feel bad about myself. So I'm going to share whatever he puts out there. So, yeah. So anyway, that's why I like tribes.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I love it. So, like, technically, if you created 10 blog posts a day and a new pin for every single one of them, you could be like, Elisa, she can worry about her own Pinterest, and I'm just going to pin my own content. You could, right? There's nothing that says you have to share anybody else's content. And those 80-20 rules where, okay, I share 80% of other people's content and only 20 of mine because Pinterest wants to see me sharing other people's content, is not true, right? The priority here is on new content. So if you can share your new content, excellent, wonderful, great. If you're not creating enough content, that's when you really do need to share other people's content, which is where tribes can save you a ton of time finding new and really relevant and good content. You also don't have to worry about pinning 50 times a day, right? So Pinterest wants to see that you're active and consistent. So it's better to pin a couple times a day than to pin 80 times one day a week. But if you're just starting out, especially if you just want to pin maybe 5 times a day, that's perfectly fine. It's not like the more you do, the better you're going to do necessarily.
Great points. I do want to bring up this point by our friend Laura Patterson, who is awesome because she's here almost every week. And she goes, yes, tribes are awesome. You can also see who shared your content so you can return the favor and send them a thank you message to connect. That is a good tailwind tip right there. That's worth at least 2.5 points right there for that. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and make that call right there. So thanks, Laura, for that. But yeah, so tribes is awesome. A lot of people use that, and it's a great way. You know, I have clients who don't, I mean, they're putting out content almost every day. I'm not that person. So most of us, I feel, are that way, where we're lucky if we can do a blog post a week. And so having those places to pull content for that you can share, and then they'll share yours, is kind of a godsend. And so that is a great way. You always want to prioritize your content. So instead of like searching forever trying to share other people's content, save that time and create new pins for your old evergreen content, which is a great tip. So, all right. So that was number 3. Let's go to number 4, saving new content to Pinterest right away. What do you mean by that? How fast are you saying here?
Well, I mean, it's not like the very instant you publish it, you better get over there on Pinterest and pin it. However, when you save your fresh content to Pinterest, you want to save it to the most relevant board right away. So we talked about how you might create several different boards that would fit the same piece of content. So if you had like fall bicycling styles for 2019, that might fit on like your biking accessories board. It might fit on your biking shorts board, but it probably doesn't fit on your bike trails board, right? So just think about that very first time you save it right out of the gate. That's the most impactful time. That is where the context of the board title, the board description, will follow that pin around Pinterest as it's being saved. So give it some real thought the very first time that you save it. You do want to save it to every relevant board, though. So what I like to do is I use Pinterest interval pinning. So I go in Tailwind's Pinterest. Oh my goodness, I always get that mixed up. I know. So you can put in more than one board and then hit the interval, use intervals, and say every 5 days I want you to send it to the next board, right? So it's going to go to my bicycle clothing board, and then it's going to go to my bike shorts board, and it's going to go to any other relevant board, but with 5 days in between to kind of spread out the distribution of it. 5 days is not a magic number. It's just one that feels right to me. We don't have any hard and fast rules on it.
Cool. Okay, so on that, so you're talking about interval pinning, which is a great feature of Tailwind. And I think there is some confusion, and I'm going to throw an audible right here so you can talk about this, is that, so we have, interval pinning, but we also have something called Smart Loop. And I think there's some confusion a lot of times between those two and the purposes that you would use them for. So you were talking about using interval pinning when you have a new blog post and a new image that you're going to put it and you're going to trickle it out through like 5 days to different boards. So that's interval pinning. What is Smart Loop and how does that work compared to interval pinning?
Okay, so interval pinning, it just goes out once to those boards that you set and at the interval that you set it. With Smart Loop, it will continue to go out. So you might say, all right, this one blog post about fall biking gear, I want that to go out now, but then next year about this time, I know that it would be popular again. So I want to make sure it goes out again at that point. So anytime you know that fall biking gear is trending, you want to make sure that pin goes out at those times. So it might be once every 3 months or whenever you know that topic is popular. And that way you don't have to remember to go back and schedule it every year. It's just going to keep going out.
That is probably the best explanation I've ever heard about between the two. That's going to be a clip right there. I tell you, you're awesome. So we just finished number 4, how to save new content Pinterest. You want to do it right away and how to do that using interval pinning. Don't forget that we do have this free download that you guys can download and get it as at bit.ly/pin strategy now. That's bit.ly/pin strategy now. And you can get that. It's pretty amazing, actually. Did you write it, Lisa? I said that, and I didn't know if you wrote it or not.
I did write it. Thank you.
Okay,
very much.
it's real. I am giving her kudos. It really is amazing. So, with that, we have a special guest for you all right now. We have our very own Melissa, who is going to give us the Tailwind tip of the week. Melissa, make sure you unmute and hello to Murphy Ellie Show. Awesome. So glad to see you here.
Oh, I am so thrilled to be here. I feel so famous in between the two of you.
Oh, don't let Lisa get to you. There may be a cat that jumps on your head if you get too close.
That seems on brand. Yeah.
Yes, that could happen. That would be amazing. So tell us what your tip of the week is for us today.
Of course. Yeah. So you know how you're scrolling through Pinterest and you see all these beautiful pins and below them there's a title and you're thinking, wait a second, I don't have a title. Where's my title? I want a title. Well, I am here to teach you guys how to do it. There are 2 ways to get a title on your pins. The first is the way that I, of course, think you should do it for your own website, and that's getting rich pins on your pins. So when you're creating an article pin or a recipe pin, you have that option of adding a title to your actual pin. The other way that you can do it if you do not have rich pins is within the first 30 characters of your pin description. That's what Pinterest is going to grab as the title that they will show in the feed. So when you're typing out that description, if you don't have rich pins, make sure your important keywords are included in those first 30 characters because that's what's going to show up on Pinterest. And that's what you want to use to get people excited and interested in your pin, to repin it, to save it, to make sure they click through and find out what you are sharing on your website.
That is an awesome tip. So, is that a question that you get? Yeah, go ahead. You go first.
I was going to ask, so what makes this a Tailwind tip? Why does this keep coming up with Tailwind users?
Yeah, so we get this question a lot because people don't understand where it's coming from. And they're thinking, well, how can I, schedule my pins and make sure that I have that title and get that SEO boost? And really, it's pretty simple. And when you're scrolling through on Pinterest and you see those ones that don't have a title attached to them, when I click through on them, they're just ones without a description. So those descriptions actually really matter, not just for the SEO and getting your important keywords in there, but also those first 30 characters. You got to draw people in with those first 30 characters.
That's a great tip because I started seeing that question come through when Pinterest added it to their pin creator button, the little red circle with the plus in it. And then you can so you upload your image, you can add your description, your URL, and all of a sudden this title box showed up. And people started saying, well, how come I don't have a title box in Tailwind? So this is a great tip. It's like, you're not missing out by using Tailwind. It's still going to be there. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I'm sure that you'll be back shortly. So get those Tailwind tips ready.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right. I do want to bring up, there was a great question, Lisa, before we jump back into creating a simple Pinterest strategy. Where did it go? We've got so many Tailwind tips coming through. Here it is. Okay, here, I'm going to send it. And it's back about the Smart Loop and interval pins. This is Andrea. She goes, are the pins being scheduled through Smart Loop and the interval pins considered a repin of original pins saved when you first release the new content or the first chosen board? Or is Tailwind generating a new identical copy of the pin you uploaded and scheduled?
Yeah. So, Pinterest marketing partners like Tailwind cannot actually repin. So when we're talking about repin here, and I know it gets really confusing and I apologize, but that means going to Pinterest and actually hitting save on that pin and saving it to a board right in Pinterest. Anytime you were to reschedule through Tailwind, it's going to be a new instance of that same pin. So when we talk about new pins, we're talking about a new image and URL combination. But we're also not talking about repinning when we're talking about using Tailwind. Does that help?
That's awesome. That was a great thing. And I do want to pull up this from Leela says, she goes, Tailwind tip, if you don't have rich pins, use the first 30 characters of your description. So if you're just joining us, if you add Tailwind tips, you have some nuggets that you have heard us say or that you have for Tailwind yourself, you could be entered to win this awesome Selfie Light. So keep those Tailwind tips coming because you guys are really dropping some nuggets in there down below. And also I wanted to bring up, there was even more coming. Our friend Christy Hill had a great, hey Christy, thanks for joining us today. She says, where did it go? It went away. Christy had a great comment. She did say if you're manually adding the pins to Pinterest, you can write a custom title. So if you do really want that custom title, you can do it that way.
Yeah, and we've had some people ask, well, if I do that, but I have rich pins, will Pinterest then overwrite it with the rich pin data? No. What you enter manually, if you're creating a pin on Pinterest, that is going to stay. I tried it. I wanted to see what would happen.
Okay, I gotta ask this question because this is a doozy. So Melissa goes, for one blog post, how many pins do you recommend to be scheduled on Tailwind? Ooh.
As many as you have time for. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of times you'll see, I like to see it you see it really kind of going, and then it'll start to peak off and maybe even dip down a little bit, like traffic from your pin. And that's when I like to go back and maybe if I create a new image, if I can still capture some of that momentum. I don't know if that's just me, but I'm like, I want to squeeze all of the stuff I can get out of it. So there's nothing wrong with, creating as many as you can, experimenting with what works. Our friend Jennifer Priest has some great lives that she talks about this and some great articles that she mentions, creating all these multiple pins and really using Pinterest as a search engine and seeing what's being popular, what's working, and using that to base what kind of image you're going to create. So, see what's popular, see what's working, and try to analyze and see, why is that working? Is it a color? Is it the font? Is it the way it's placed? Is it, all those things play a factor. Sometimes, you and I have both made pins before that really weren't that good, but they took off for some reason. And you're like, why did the stinky one work and not the one that I spent hours on in Photoshop? And it's who knows? And sometimes it just does. And so it's worth experimenting with.
Yeah, I think that's the fun of Pinterest. Like sometimes it's just who knows, some kind of mystery at work that we'll never figure out, but it makes it really fun. But yeah, as many as you have time for. Think about it this way: like what takes less time, writing a blog post or creating 10 pins for the blog post you created last week?
Exactly.
I know for me what the answer is.
Yeah, and some of those pins, and we've talked about this, that they come up every year. You get more traffic from them every year if you have an evergreen post. We have friends that, Kim Garst has one, she says will not die. It's something about, she continues to get tons of traffic from it. And she's just like, I can't kill this thing. And so that's great. That's a great problem to have. And you never know what pin is going to really take off. So it's worth taking the time, especially with the tools nowadays. It's not a big deal with easel and all that. You can really...
You can edit right inside of Pinterest, right?
Yeah.
So if you have that background image, you can create a new pin right inside Pinterest. This is cool. Like what you were saying about Kim, though, I've been talking to a couple of people because I'm working on an article about that, about repurposing your images to get more out of your content on Pinterest. And our friend Jessica Boston, she's a paid teacher seller, and she created a new pin from an article that did really well a year ago. She saved it out and looked at the pin stats from the last 30 days, comparing the two. The old one is getting just 1/10 of the traffic of the new one. So the new one is 10xing her traffic for that same old article, which is really encouraging to me that, this actually works, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
So, instead of maybe racking your brain to, come up with a new article, maybe take that time and spend a day making new images for those posts that really have done well. So,
yeah.
All right. So we've talked about setting up your account. We've talked about setting up your boards, how to prioritize your own content above everything else, and saving new content to Pinterest right away. So number 5, what's our tip number 5?
It is create and save images that convert every single week. Okay,
so let me stop you right there. What do you mean by converting?
Okay.
You're talking about click-throughs to your site? Is that a conversion?
It usually. Okay, so when we're talking about that convert, in this case, we're talking about pins that generate awareness, pins that generate email signups, pins that generate online sales, that generate offline sales. And I love that Pinterest webinar about how to create pins that work for those objectives. So like, what is it that makes an image effective? So a couple of things are, if you can show someone using your product or service, you can get up to 67% more offline sales. That's huge. So your product or service should always be the focal point of the pin, even if it's going to be a lifestyle image. And lifestyle images tend to be more engaging. So try that, but don't make it too hard to tell what the pin is about, right? And then adding a tasteful logo in the top or bottom, in the middle, not in the corners, only because for technical reasons, right? Pinterest puts things in those corners. You don't want to cover it up. Use the size they recommend, which is basically like 600 by 900 or anything of a similar ratio. Really lean into seasonal or life moments. So that could be anything from like homework time to dinner time to certain holidays. And that can give you an online sales lift of up to 22%. So huge. Another one would be text overlays that show the details of your product or service, which makes people 54% more likely to visit your site and submit their email address. So,
wow.
Like huge impact these little tiny things can have on the results, on the success of your pin or not. So if you're not blogging once a week, create a new image every week. And I've heard this just anecdotally. People will say, if I skip a week, everything, like my traffic goes down, my reach goes down.
Yeah.
So make that a goal. And we talked about, how many images to create. And we had this discussion in one Facebook group, like how different is different enough?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So can I just change this? What are your thoughts?
This is my opinion. So I'm still not 100% sold on my strategy or not, but I will use the same image, maybe tilt it or move it in and zoom it in. I will change up the text overlay, but I think more important, and I think that's enough to change up the image, but I think more important than anything else is changing up the description, because I just think that is, instead of using the same description over and over and changing the image, I like to change everything up. So I want the image to be changed and I want the description to be changed. And I think that makes the biggest difference in not having the same description plopped in there every time. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. But I want to know, how then are you A/B testing? Like, how can you then say, okay, in this case, this image did better, but was it because of this description, or was it because of the image?
That's the thing, is you don't know but the problem is I think there's a better chance for my pin to go viral and get more things if I have a totally different than trying to A/B test the description. So because I used to do it, I'd change up the images and I just plop in the description, and I've noticed now that if I change up the description, all of them seem to do better. Now I don't know if this is because Pinterest has flipped over the switch on the fresh strategy, this fresh content kind of thing. They're really boosting that. But I have noticed that more, that if I change the description and the image, it does better. Now I'm not doing crazy wacky stuff, but I'm changing it enough that I'm rewording it a little bit. I may ask a question on one, I may not on another. And so, they've been doing, yes, I'll try to, but I'll mix them up in the description. I'll write them different.
Okay. So my theory on this may be a little bit different, because now when Pinterest talks about what a new pin is, it's the combination of pin and URL. So what is most important to a pinner when they're looking at the feed is going to be the image itself. Mm-hmm. Obviously, descriptions matter. We talked about that. So I'm going to have to think about your way a little bit.
Well, the main reason is because I'm thinking of it as a search engine, because I know that plays a little bit in the search algorithm, and so I want to. And if one's doing really well, then I may go back and use that. If I create a new image, I may use that description. If it's a viral, like it takes off, that viral pin for a company takes off, then I will maybe try that same description on a different image and see how that does. But I just think I like to spread it out. I know to really A/B test, you're supposed to have everything the same and then just change one thing, but it's too slow.
But it's hard. It's too slow. And the other thing too, we know when a brand new image URL combination gets shared out, that's going to be your biggest impact. So you can never fairly test that. Right. Yeah. It just wouldn't.
And I think Pinterest wants fresh content so bad that I want to make it as fresh as I can. And so for me, changing the description is as fresh as the new snow on the ground. And so that's what I want to trick them to think it's brand new. No, not tricking. Right. I didn't mean that, Pinterest. Not tricking. Just I want to.
You want to pack things up so that it keeps Pinterest interesting for everyone and they stick around. I get it. So we had this discussion in a group, and people were trying to kind of figure out, like, what's the least I can do to change an image to make it fresh to Pinterest. And what we kind of came down to, and I got on my soapbox just a tiny bit, is, well, let's think of what's the point. The point is Pinterest wants to make the platform fresh and engaging and interesting for people who come on. So if I come on there and I see your image and you've just changed a little box in the corner, that's not fresh to me. I want to see something all new, like a new image or all new text on it, something that's different enough that I don't think, oh, that's just a remix of the old image. Like, think about the purpose of it. Pinterest can see your images, right? So I don't know exactly how, but it's some kind of way that they can analyze the pixels. So if you don't change the background image at all, they can see that. I don't know how much they discount that, but think about it, why they want us to do that, and work with that rather than trying to get around it. And then safe.
Yeah. And it's not that hard usually to switch out images. And also if you're doing products for a company, a lot of times they have multiple product shots. And so usually there's enough, at least I found, to play with to do that. And so even with stock photos, I always tell people, man, if you're buying a stock photo, buy it the biggest size you can afford, because then you can rotate it and crop it and do all the things, and you could change it up a lot to make it look like a totally different image. You could do different washes on the back. You could put filters on it in Easel or Canva or whatever. You can do a lot to make that image look different. You can put a vignette on it. I mean, all sorts of things. So I think that's really important. So I thought that your point is valid. It's like you're not trying to see how many, like if I move it 3 pixels and Pinterest thinks it's a new pin. That's not the point. It's to really, give them fresh content, because that's going to do better in the long run.
That's what people want to see. And if you never know, you present the same material in a slightly different way, and that may cause someone to click when they didn't before.
Right. This is a great question from Laura. She goes, is there a limit for how many times you should repin the same pin to the same board, or maybe the best interval between pinning the same pin to the same board?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of comes down to questions about like Smart Loop, right? So
Right.
Pinterest has said they don't want you to save the same pin to the same board over and over and over and over and over again. So Smart Loop is set up in such a way that it reinforces that longer interval, right? So seasonally or yearly, like when it makes sense to repin. The other thing that Smart Loop does is to show you how many repins each pin is getting. So what I like to do to analyze like whether Smart Loop is working for a certain piece of content is I go in and see my average repin per pin rate, and anything that's below that, I'm going to take out of the Smart Loop because obviously it's just not engaging anymore. I might need to replace it with a new image. But yeah, you don't want to be resaving over and over and over again. That's not the idea.
Cool.
To the same board. Definitely to every single relevant board though. Let's
Right.
clarify that.
Right. And even some that may not. No, I'm just teasing. Katerina says this.
Oh.
She goes, something I've noticed that is if I use pins with multiple images, they've been doing really well. Now, do you think is she talking about carousel pins, or is she talking about creating a pin with multiple images?
I was thinking more of like a collage, like a gift guide kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Those do well.
It could be a carousel pin, but yeah. And what I love about gift guides or like top duplicate makeup things or whatever is even if you are an e-commerce seller and you don't have a blog, it is so easy to put those together and then you just link it to like a category page on your blog, and those do really well. So, you know, blogging, I still feel like having a blog for Pinterest is huge. But if you don't, and you want to try it anyway, try those gift guides, try those top 10s.
All right. All right. So now we've talked about how, setting up your account, setting up your boards, prioritizing your own content, save new content for Pinterest right away, create and save things that convert every week. We've talked about that. Now we're going to be talking about, this is a big one, write descriptions that motivate. So Are you saying like buy now, sale, fire sale? What are you saying for descriptions that motivate?
Well, I mean, there is a place for a call to action, right? So Pinterest, that same webinar said that if you use clear, actionable wording with a strong call to action, like sign up, get yours, discover, you can get a 70% higher rate to email sign up. So hugely important. I was out looking for some good examples. I found one from Stitch Fix that I really like. Stitch Fix sends you the perfect pieces hand-selected by a personal stylist. Our process lets us concentrate on the important details of your look, your taste, size, and preference. You'll always get pieces that fit your precise measurements and individual style. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Plus, there's no subscription required. Sign up now and make this your most stylish season ever. I love that description.
Oh, wow.
So some of the things you can do, that you heard that call to action, including your description, anything that might help people decide if it's relevant. They did that really well with a lot of detail. They used keywords in the description, but it was written in natural sentences that were easy to read, and it was like you didn't feel like it was keyword stuffed. And you have up to 500 characters, so use them if you want, but keep those first 30 characters or so like with your keywords, with your brand name in it. That is one place to use your brand name. And make that that's the most important part, because like Melissa was saying, if you don't have rich pins, that could end up being the title on your pin.
So one of the things that you and I love so much, we used to have these debates so often, is now you can have hashtags in your descriptions, which is a big part of descriptions. Is always something people want to talk about. How many do you usually recommend? And a lot of people forget about this, is the more hashtags you use, the less amount of space you'll have for your description. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this from you, but do you think it's more important to have a longer description and not as many hashtags, or vice versa?
Can we do as I say, not as I do?
Sure.
Because I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes the description is a little bit of an afterthought, and I'm trying to get out of that mindset because they're so super important. So I end up with plenty of room for hashtags. But when Pinterest came out and said, okay, use hashtags, they work really great on Pinterest, they said use up to 20. And we were all like, what? That's a lot of hashtags.
That's a lot.
And
yeah.
also it doesn't leave a lot of room for description. And then they said, okay, use 5 hashtags. And now it's a few. So I'm taking a few to mean 2 or 3. So that's kind of what I'm going with. How about you?
Yes, so I usually use 2 or 3, and what I usually do is I use branded hashtags as my first one. So for my pins, it would be hashtag mainly Pinterest tips. If I'm doing Kim Garst, I'm doing hashtag Kim Garst. I always use that because if they click on it, then they'll see those, and that's just kind of best practices for hashtags through there or Instagram. That's what I've always done. And then I use 2 that I think would, make sense. I usually start broad and then go narrow, or sometimes I go narrow and go broad. It just depends on how I'm feeling that day. But I don't think it really matters. But yeah, so I usually about put 3 of them in the description. But I think spending more of your brain power on writing good descriptions has a more return on investment than really digging deep and researching and finding out which hashtag is trending on Pinterest. It's a different animal, like we're used to on Instagram. I mean, Instagram, it makes a difference a lot, trying to get in those specific categories. Pinterest, I don't think it's that. I mean, it's nice, they're searchable, but it's not as big of a deal.
And I'm not going to argue with you at all, because I like
Amazing.
your use. Use of the 3 hashtags, like the branded one, the broad one, the narrow one. And the important thing to keep in mind is that your broad and narrow are keyword related, right? So this is just another way to be found in search. Whereas in Instagram, it might be like, I'm going to pick one that is super popular and hope I end up in that popular feed for 3 seconds. And I'm going to pick one that's a little more niche that I might have an actual chance of being found in. So it's less of a popularity thing than a search aid. So I like your way. I have nothing to.
Wow, mark that down, folks. That's a tailwind tip right there.
Yeah.
By the way, you guys have been killing it on the tailwind tips. Thank you for that. I can't wait to see who's going to win this awesome selfie light, because it is awesome. And don't forget that you can also download our free Pinterest strategy guide at Pin Strategy Now. That's bit.ly/Pin Strategy Now. Go download it today. All right, so we're getting close to the end. We're at that was number 6, right? Descriptions that motivate, and this ties into it because it's important inside of descriptions. But number 7 is use your keywords. So that's awful broad. What do you mean by that?
So I think first think about where they matter. So primarily, they matter for distribution. Like Pinterest wants to know who should see this pin. They want to know when should it appear in a certain search, when should it appear in related pins. Now to me, Pinterest SEO is really kind of interesting because it's part science, part your keywords and your image and the content on your website, but it's also kind of part mystery, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. It's Pinterest is seeing kind of what I'm interested in, and they're expanding on that to show me things they think I might want to see.
Yeah, so here's a question for you. When, we're talking about keywords, are you ever surprised about, if you found a keyword I never thought about using that before? Is that, if you're if I'm searching for social media, and there's some people are starting to use the keyword for TikTok now, which is kind of weird because that's so brand new. So, do you get surprised? Or do you have the standard keywords that you usually use, or are you trying to go discover some new ones that maybe you can be in on the ground floor? It almost kind of feels like hashtags, but it's not. But are there stuff that you're always kind of researching, maybe some new keywords in?
Yeah, and I think maybe the best way to illustrate it is when you're doing Pinterest advertising. So I work with an ad representative for our Tailwind account, and we've been talking about using some new targeting. So even though obviously what we do is we have Instagram and we have Tailwind schedulers and analytics, we're reaching out broader than that. We're reaching out to people who are interested in startup topics, people who are interested in startup business topics, online business, digital media, design. It's just it's helping kind of expand beyond exactly what you do to bring people in who may not even be aware of what you do, but if they were aware, would want in on it, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to look at it. So always be researching some of those new places where you could grab some new keywords. So, all right, we talked about...
So people want to where to put your keywords. So text on image, Pinterest can read that. Put your keywords there. Put them in your pin description, in your board titles and descriptions like we talked about. They look at the website to which you're linking from that pin as well. So make sure you're using similar hashtags in the title and in the first part of the text, and also use them in your hashtags. There are a bunch of different ways you can do keyword research. What's your favorite way, Jeff?
I do like the autocomplete on Pinterest, where I start typing and seeing what comes up. That's always a big one. Now, I want to ask you a question, because you said to put it on the image, right? The keyword on the image. But if you're having like, a pork butt recipe, you don't just put pork on as a big text on the overlay. You add it in the title, right? You're not trying to... if you don't want to spam with your image overlays, text overlays on your image, I just want to make that clear, because I can just see people going, there'll be a whole, pork on a pin somewhere, and like, why am I not ranking? So I just want to clarify that. You're muted still, by the way. Your cough still muting.
Sorry. So that's a really good example that you might try a couple different things. If you're doing recipes, or if you're doing like strict products, where it's obvious by the image itself what you're selling or what you're offering. Like, because for you and I, we always have to have text on image, because otherwise people would have no idea what it's about. But for them, pinners and Pinterest itself can actually like see the image and kind of figure out what it is without text overlay on it. But I would try like both and see what performs better. So I wouldn't put like pork in big red letters, but you could put like the name of the recipe on it.
And hopefully it would have pork in it. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
ideally.
Right. But some of them don't. So you can be creative in your titling, I guess is what I wanted to say. All right. So using keywords, very important. We're getting short on time, so I want to buzz through these other one. Number 8 is analyze, tweak, and repeat. So what does that entail when you say analyze, tweak, and repeat?
Yeah, so it's really pretty simple, especially with Pinterest new analytics. If you just go to analytics overview, there is a ton of information in it, and the best way to figure it out is just to start clicking and changing options. But basically, you can look at just organic or just promoted. You can change it so you're only looking at pins that go to your URL, and then you can figure out what are people clicking on. Like link clicks, to me, it's just a gold mine. You can look at what people are clicking on to go to your website. You can also look at what people are clicking on that you pinned that goes to other people's websites. And to me, that's just like a cheat sheet of what I should be creating for content on Pinterest, whether it's a style of pin or a topic maybe I haven't covered. Like, for example, I did this for Tailwind's account, and a pin that does really well for us organically for link clicks does not go to our site. It's about creating pins for Etsy. So is that something that I should be blogging about on Tailwind? Probably, right? It's very relevant, and it's getting a ton of clicks. It's also a very different style of image, so we'd have to kind of test and see what is it exactly about that pin that people love so much. But I'm gonna do that every month or so and use that to inform the content that I create and also the pin designs that I request. And our designer Justine loves these things, so she'll go in there too, and she'll start coming up with new ideas for designs and styles that we can test. So every month your marketing should be getting better if you do that.
Right. That's a great point. So analyze, tweak, and repeat was tip number 8. And number 9, it's just remember what you don't have to do. And in fact, if you go back 2 weeks and either watch on YouTube or the podcast, Elise and I have a whole show talking about what to stop doing on Pinterest right now. So that's a great one if you're like, if you feel... Yeah, if you're overwhelmed or whatever, that's a perfect one to go look at, because I think sometimes we get in a rut and we think that we need to continue to do stuff, and we really, really don't. So what else do you have when you remember what you don't have to do? What is some tips there?
I think some of the things that people get stuck on, especially when they're brand new, is thinking about follow and unfollow. That's just not a thing on Pinterest. You don't have to do that. They also feel like, well, I have to be spending a considerable amount of time on the Pinterest platform itself. Like schedulers are great, but I really need to be on. That's not true. As long as you are contributing to the platform on a consistent basis, even if you're using a scheduler, that's what you need to do. You don't have to worry about board covers. Let's see, what else don't you have to do, Jeff?
Well, we covered it a ton on the show. We, you know, you don't have to worry so much about, you know, what that number means with your monthly viewers, all that stuff. Remember, Tailwind is not really a social platform. I mean, Pinterest is not a social platform. It's more of a visual social. It's a visual marketing engine. It's not social at all. So a lot of that stuff that you kind of got ingrained in you, if you're doing a lot of Facebook stuff, or, you know, you got to do all this stuff, you don't have to do on Pinterest. You need to create fresh pins more than anything. I hope you got that from the show today. And, you know, these basic strategies will take you. I mean, Elise and I have been doing this for a long time, and this stuff works. There's a reason why she gave you 9 of these steps, because they actually work. So,
it's easy. Like, you don't have to spend time going back and engaging, right? You don't have to, like, I'm still getting a lot of contact requests on Pinterest. I ignore every single one of them because it's just not the place for it.
Right.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah. So you guys, this has been a great show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You guys dropped a ton of great Tailwind tips. I can't wait to see who is going to win this awesome Selfie Light. Join us next week as we jump right back in and we talk all about Instagram. But for today, make sure that you go and download this free Pinterest guide. It's at bit.ly/pin strategy now. That's bit.ly/pin strategy now. And with that, we thank you guys. And what?
A link for getting a free month of Tailwind.
Oh, I don't have that. Tell them what it is, because I totally forgot the free month of Tailwind.
/marketing-unleashed. So you get a 100 pin free trial or 30 Instagram post free trial. And then if you upgrade, you get a free month.
Give them that URL one more time.
bit.ly/marketing-unleashed.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We'll go back in the comments and try to answer all those questions. You guys dropped a ton of great stuff in there today. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye now.